In school, I had high school bands, and I was sort of a big Beatle fan and all that stuff, the Byrds and a lot of the sort of, the Rolling Stones. And so we sort of just did that kind of stuff for a long time, and eventually I started kind of working in my own songs. But then in the 70s, I joined a proper group with Carla Bonoff, Wendy Waldman, and Kenny Edwards, and we were called Brindle. And we did an album, but during that time, Linda Ronstadt saw me at a show, liked my guitar playing, and rang me up and said, could you do a tour? Then she recorded the Heart Like a Wheel album, and I ended up playing a lot of the instruments on that. So the rest is histrionics, as we say.
Your dad was an Academy Award winner for the score for the movie Exodus.
Yeah.
Your mum, of course, was the singing voice of Natalie Wood in West Side Story and Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady, amongst others, wasn't she?
Yeah, Deborah Carr, The King and I. So she was pretty much the queen of movie musical voices. So I grew up in a very musical family, so it was pretty much in my DNA at that point.
The first solo album, 1975, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
Which was quite an exciting time in the music business.
Yeah, it was fun for me. I was still in Linda's band, and she was, doing great. And I started doing my own thing as well. In California, there was all this sort of Jackson Browne, Joni Mitchell, the Eagles, James Taylor, all that crew. And so I was really sort of a part of that, and it was fun, especially looking back on it. At the time, it just seemed like a normal way of life.
The singles kept coming, didn't they, in the late 1970s, and then Wax. Now, you mentioned Graham Gouldman, fantastic songwriter. It was always going to be a recipe for success because you both had great track records, didn't you?
Right. Well, he started writing big hit records at 16, and with all the For Your Love and all the stuff that he wrote for the Herman's Hermits and the Yardbirds and the Hollies, Bus Stop. And so he'd been really doing it right for quite a long time. Then he joined 10cc, and they just had hit after hit, and I was quite a fan of 10cc and all those old songs, but I didn't actually put the people together, and I realized later that it was the same guy. At some point I came over to meet 10cc at the behest of Warner Brothers in Records in Los Angeles, because they wanted to do a few extra tracks for the American audience, and they figured I'd be a good person to help produce it. It was pretty much a love at first sight. When Eric Stewart and Graham and I met, it got so intense that they asked me to join 10cc, which would have been great, and I should have, but I had some previous commitments and I couldn't do it. But a year later, Graham called up and said Eric was off in France someplace, and would I like to come around and do some songwriting? And I was just going to stay for about 4 weeks or something, but I ended up staying about 7 months, and we formed Common Knowledge, and then that turned into Wax, and off we went,